Get in on the secret. September is one of the best times to visit the Boardwalk Plaza Hotel in Rehoboth Beach. The weather is grand, and just steps from the sand, you can relax and experience the convenience of their oceanfront location right on the Rehoboth Beach Boardwalk. Enjoy Victoria's Restaurant, the charming Plaza Pub and room service. Visit boardwalkplaza.com and book your perfect getaway today, or call 800-33-BEACH for fast, friendly assistance. Thanks to the Boardwalk Plaza for being the Bridge Podcast Network sponsor.
If you have ever wondered why Christians dress modestly, why they have their own thoughts about the types of clothing that should be worn, you are listening to the right podcast. I'm Mark Dickey.
And I'm Burt Miller.
This is the Why Do Christians podcast. Hey, welcome to the show. My name is Mark Dickey. I host the afternoon show on the Bridge radio station. My co-host is Pastor Burt Miller from Solid Ground Church in Lewis, Delaware. Burt, how are you today?
Mark Vitruvius Dickey, you old rascal. How you doing, man? How are you doing?
I'm good. Am I showing my age by not knowing what that is?
Vitruvius?
Yeah.
I think I made...
Is that a word?
It's an epic sounding middle name that I assume is yours. I don't actually... If that's a reference, I don't know that it is to anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It sounds, I don't know. It sounds like envious.
I can Google it.
Mysterious.
Yeah.
Vitruvius.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd rather, now that you say that, I'd rather not know. So that way, like there's a mysterious element to it.
Okay.
Like I'm content with the gap, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm doing well.
Great.
I'm doing well.
Great. All that to say.
Yeah. So this episode, we actually have two guests here with us today. From the morning show on the Bridge radio station, we have Denise Harper.
Hello.
It's so nice to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here and to be part of this broadcast today.
Yeah, it's normally just Burt and I. So,
well, thank you for inviting me in.
And then we also have Kim Willey, who also works at the Bridge. Kim, how are you doing today?
I am doing great and honored to be here.
We're glad to have you guys. We thought, okay, we're going to be talking about modesty. Let's learn from the mistakes of the past, and let's not make this an episode where a bunch of men are telling women what to do.
Yeah, we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we could talk about scripture, but it's definitely better to have a woman's perspective as we're doing this. But first, Burt, we have some business to take care of.
Oh.
So when we post a podcast, we've got this website that tells us, how many people downloaded the episode and how much have people been listening, where they're listening from, not their address or anything, but I learned...
The room of the house where they are.
Yeah. What their Wi-Fi password is. I learned that we have been listened to in 34 of 50 states.
Oh, okay.
There are only 16 states that have not listened to our podcast yet.
We got to change this,
cool.
Mark. Yeah, that's kind of cool, right? Yeah,
that's cool.
Yes.
Can we get a list of those states? We can actually start a campaign.
Yes.
So if you know someone in Maine, New Hampshire, West Virginia, Kentucky, Georgia, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Arizona, and Alaska. I know someone in Alaska.
Yeah. All right.
Let them know if they need to listen to our podcast, and we'll fill in our little map.
And make the podcast sweep the nation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we'll start working on countries.
Sure. Sounds good. Kentucky surprised me a little bit because I was born there. I feel like I know somebody in Kentucky that would listen, but oh well. I'll do my part to get the great bluegrass state of Kentucky going there. Yeah. Well, so first, Denise, Kim, thank you so much for being here. Mm-hmm. So with us talking about modesty today, I guess my first question for the two of you would be, when you hear that word, like what does that word mean to you? What springs to mind? Yeah.
First thing that comes to my mind is something that a lady told me in church years ago. She said, keep the mystery. And I have never forgotten that.
That is good.
And when my daughter got old enough to be old enough to know what I was talking about, I shared that with her. It was like, keep the mystery, because there are some things that God has for you and you alone, and then someday your spouse. And I have always loved that and thought that that was a beautiful way to remember that there's something special about being a woman.
Yeah.
And we don't have to reveal all of that to everyone.
That
makes
is
sense.
so good. I think of like the word humble, not just modesty in covering yourself up, as far as clothing, but modesty in not being so out there with like, hey, I'm great, or I'm this, or I'm that, whatever, not talking yourself up so much. So that perspective of it too, of being modest, just,
You know what's really interesting? Like you say that, instantly it reminds me of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, where he says, "Blessed are the meek," right? For they will inherit the earth. And that word that we translate as meek, sometimes like we think of it as this thing, like for whatever reason we associate meekness with weakness, but that's not what that word means. It's often associated with sort of a restrained power. Like I had a friend years ago. He said, meekness is, you're at a stoplight and you're in a muscle car and the person next to you is revving the engine, and you choose not to take off and blast them down the road. So like we see that idea of, okay, like there's a humility there that instantly goes, oh man, that's in keeping with the greater sort of manifesto of Jesus for the kingdom and how we live in this. Yeah.
So I pulled a bunch of verses, and we'll go through them as we go through this episode. First Timothy, I brought this up to my wife this morning at breakfast, and First Timothy 2 she's like, this is kind of the go-to modesty verse. 2:9-10. Likewise, also that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair, no braids, man. Not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women who profess godliness with good works. And so that's kind of the catch-all of the modesty concept. I think it's funny, of all the things, like there's probably young girls who are new to the faith and they're looking for just flat out answers. Like, okay, I want to dress better. What does the Bible say?
Yeah.
And it's just really funny that it's like, well, don't braid your hair.
yeah. That probably meant something different at the time. I don't know. I'm just visualizing braids now, and I don't think of it that way. But
yeah, well, it was a lot of what you said a few moments ago,
Yeah.
and that's what my wife Brittany brought up. Was it braiding your hair might have been the nicest, flashiest thing you could do.
true.
In that culture, gold and pearls or costly attire, and so modesty and self-control, and I think it's not making it all about you.
Yes.
Where
Yeah.
you walk into the room
That's
and you
true.
command the room and
Yeah.
I'm here.
I think that has been kind of a baseline for me in my Christian walk, is how can I represent Christ well and make it about him when I don't come into a room for it to be about me.
Yeah.
Because I love the Lord. And I had a pastor who said, the more that we love others and show the love of Christ, the more they'll want to be like Christ. And so to me, that's always my motivation in loving people, is that they would want to be more like Christ. And so how do I portray that?
That's good.
Something that we might want to do. So we've jumped into the conversation assuming that we're on the same page with definitions of modesty and
That's good.
and what we mean by that. It might be good to just sort of maybe explain the Christian culture of a little bit in terms of, I'm not even saying that like the biblical understanding of it, because I think it points, the Christian culture and the biblical understanding of it are different, and we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But just generally speaking, when we talk about Christians dressing modestly, and usually we're talking about women, sometimes men, but usually women. What do we mean by that when we're saying, okay, this is the expectation? because it is a very distinct thing, I think, in our faith communities. Would anybody mind fielding that one at all, or I don't even know?
You know what? Rather than, because I feel like this topic can easily point fingers at women, and like you have to change who you are, and what does it mean for a man to dress modestly?
Yeah. Well, in my case, it means covering up these giant biceps. That I used to bench press charter buses. But
Yes.
yeah.
Well, just yesterday, I was talking to a friend and coworker at the bridge, and we were talking about that we were going to be doing this podcast. And he was like, guys need to be careful of that too. They shouldn't wear these really fitted shirts, showing their muscles, or tight pants, or different things too. And like he was saying, it's not just all on the women; it's on both, and we need to be careful. We don't want to make anybody stumble that might, have a problem with that.
What the first thing that comes to my mind is chest hair.
Wait, what?
A modest guy
doesn't
show chest hair.
Oh my goodness.
That is the first time I've ever heard that.
In my mind.
Okay.
It's like, you know what? If we could see that, then there's...
See, that's a really good point, Mark, because it's like everybody has a different idea or concept or grading scale of, to them, what is modest.
Yeah, that's true.
Will be maybe something totally different to someone else.
Right. That's the guys list is kind of short, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. It's so there's this weird thing where, we talk about this idea of covering up, or we talk about this idea of mystery. Like Denise, I love that that story that you told near the beginning of the show, because I think that's just that's incredibly apt. One thing that I've found though, is sometimes when we don't define modesty, and particularly we don't ground it in what the Bible actually does teach, is it can create issues for both genders. I've seen, unfortunately, women who were almost terrified of making men stumble, who maybe felt self-conscious of their bodies in a way because the way that modesty was communicated to them was almost as though men are sort of frothing, like rabid creatures who if you by chance dressed the wrong way could let the beast out of its cage. I don't know how you would say that.
That's pretty good,
right? And so there's this fear that kind of steps in, and there's also this shame. But the thing that I think is really interesting, like with the First Timothy passage that you mentioned, Mark. First of all, in doing a little bit of reading commentary on that, the things that Paul describes there, with like the dyed clothing or the braided hair, whatever, these were clothing choices of women who used their bodies for a trade, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so it's not a thing of, hey, don't wear clothes that you think are nice clothes. The idea behind all of like that passage, or in 1 Peter, we should probably talk about that one too, like where Peter talks about modesty. The thought behind both of them is that your glory as a person does not come from how you look on the outside. Like that's the idea behind all of it. Yeah. Like we there's a
1 Peter 3:3 is one of the ones I've pulled.
Bring it up.
Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold, jewelry, or fine clothes.
Yes. Yeah. And so like the thought biblically behind all of it is, let your beauty come from your actions. Let your beauty come from your works. It's why actually, a really interesting thing. So you go forward one chapter in 1 Timothy there, when Paul is talking about gender roles within church, and we're not touching that today either. But there's a part where he says, I suffer not a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man. Again, like how you interpret that's not today's show. But that word that we translate as exercise authority over, it occurs one time in the entire New Testament, and it's right there. And so if you want to understand what it means, you kind of have to do Greek study in other places of ancient Greek. And how you see that word used, sometimes you see it being used to describe a person taking their own life. Sometimes you see it being used of a person who maybe uses their looks, body to seduce, to gain power over someone. And so there's this flowing theme in First Timothy there we see in chapter 2, and then in chapter 3, this idea of, hey, we don't use our looks, we don't use our body to gain influence, to gain esteem, to gain power, what have you, right? Because at the end of the day, the thing that goes, the thing that gives you eternal riches are your life in the Lord. And so those separate. And I want to just make sure that we speak that to those who maybe hear this and are a little bit fearful of, oh my goodness, what if I do this or maybe they develop a resentment towards the faith because what they've heard was, man, you know what? I need to be afraid at all times looking over my shoulder because that's not what the Bible's actually teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Denise, you always remember this quote perfectly. What did Austin French say about judging God's people?
Don't judge Jesus
By the broken people he came to save.
That's
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think about when I was in high school, I was part of a Young Life ministry, which is basically a youth group without the church attached. But like our leaders would take us to church, and it would be all these high school kids who are dressed certain ways and stuff. And there were many times where sometimes this was appropriate and sometimes I think it wasn't. High schoolers were told they couldn't come into the church with their metal band t-shirt on. And or if they weren't dressed appropriately, they couldn't come into church. And I'm not saying the elders of the church were wrong. I'm not saying they were right. But you may have had an experience by somebody who was overly pulling the modesty card, and you walked out of church entirely because of that.
So let me ask then, Denise, Kim, what if you've got a young woman listening to this show and she goes, all right, so what does this mean for me in terms of how I conduct myself, the way that I dress? What does this look like for my life? What would you say to that?
I think seek the Lord. Like, everybody's got their own convictions and everybody is at a different point in their walk with the Lord. So something that might convict me might not convict someone else. Maybe they've just started their walk and they're looking at other things in their life. They're not even worried about dress or modesty or whatever. So I think you need to find out what the Lord says to you. And the best way to do that is to seek him for you, because people can tell you all day long what you should do, but what does Jesus say that you should do? Like, it's between you and him on, that's that relationship. People are going to tell you what to do all day long, but you need to seek the Lord first. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. And likewise, the person who's listening that you've been a follower of Jesus for a very long time, not judging someone by how they dress is so key to actually winning them over for Christ.
Yeah.
We're all a work in progress.
Yeah.
And so often we might, it just comes, it's sadly a second nature thing, but we'll look at, we just sum somebody up by how they dress or how they act, how they're behaving. And the bottom line is that Christ came to save us all. And so my heart for somebody who's meeting somebody and the first thought is, well, they're not up to par, then we can get sidetracked on the mission of sharing Jesus. And so not judging someone by how their appearance is really, it's important. It's really key to helping them to draw closer to Christ from wherever they stand.
That's a much better way of saying what I was trying to say before with the church, with church elders and stuff. From my research on this topic, it seems like because it's outward appearance, it's one of the first things you think of someone. Like, it's your first impression. But when I look at the scripture, that's not the first thing Jesus goes after when he's looking at a person's heart.
Yeah. Well, think about that idea though. Like, so Paul is telling them, and then conversely Peter as well, all right, don't dress like a person who uses their body to make their trade, right? But Jesus absolutely goes after and redeems people in those trades.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
Woman caught in adultery,
Yep.
the woman at the well.
sure. And career, sure, yeah. I'm trying to pick my words carefully because we have kids that listen.
Sure.
To this,
Yeah, I was thinking, Mark, of that woman in particular that was caught in adultery, because who knows how caught she was.
Right.
But chances are that she wasn't fully clothed when she was thrown down at his feet in this crowd. And there was never any mention of that in Scripture.
Yeah.
Jesus, I think, when he was pausing to write in the sand, I mean, who knows? Only God knows what he wrote,
Yeah.
That day. But it could have been other people's names who were standing in the crowd. It could have been whatever. Or maybe he was just giving time for it to sit in this situation and for her to know she wasn't condemned.
Yeah.
I just love how he handled that. And it never came up, you need to go change your clothes before I can speak to you.
I always thought he was, somebody said the writing when he was writing, was he trying to take the attention off of her? Just,
Yes.
why is this guy
Very
writing in the
possibly.
sand?
Yes,
what's he
true.
doing over
What's
here?
he doing?
And that's, but
Yeah.
that's all.
Because wouldn't Jesus do that? I mean, to win our heart, that he would defend us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he did. I believe that.
And we've all been guilty of the judging. I know I have. I mean, there has been times in my life that I literally was like, when I saw someone maybe not very covered up, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. But I thought, don't let my face show it. Don't let my face show it, because I didn't want them to feel awkward. I wanted them to just feel like, hey, how are you? Just seen as a regular person, because they are a regular person. But it hurts my heart when, like you were saying about the kids not coming to the church. What if that was their only exposure and they never, ever come back because of a t-shirt or because of something they were wearing? That messes with me when I think about that. And that convicts me to go, stop judging the book by the cover, because you don't know what's going on the inside, so it's just something to think about.
So then, ladies, so if we're talking about really, really good heart postures and issues, and we've talked about this idea of what modesty actually is. Here's what my question would be. If we're saying, all right, this has to do with, first of all, let's be obedient to the way the Lord is speaking to you and placing your eyes on Jesus, because we're all different places. My question would be, if we're removing the idea of, hey, modesty at its root is actually not an issue about, oh man, what if I cause someone to stumble or not? That's not what the passages that we're reading are about. Does that mean that there's no place to have a conversation about causing someone else to stumble and what's appropriate with that, what isn't, what is on the person and what's on you? You know what I'm asking right now? Like, is there a place to have a conversation of, stumbling or not?
I think there is. I really, really do, because a lot of times, especially maybe with younger people, they might not understand. Like, I've always was told, men are visual. Think about what you're wearing, not to be fearful, but think about it. You're like, I'm comfortable in this. Well, is it when you bend over? Is it covering? You know what I mean? You just don't want to cause someone to stumble. You want to be comfortable in what you're wearing. But I think there is a time and a place to tell someone that. You have to be gentle in it. But if you explain it, it might be eye-opening. Like, I never thought about that. I never thought that something that I do affects someone else, and it does. So I would have the conversation with someone gently.
It can also be a fact. I don't know if I'd call it a fact-finding mission, but we might assume that somebody has the wherewithal to go buy new clothes.
Yes. Yeah.
Or dress differently.
Wow.
We really don't know until
Yeah.
we really get to know the person.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the situation? How have they been raised? Or,
Yeah.
do they have the capability? I mean, maybe it could be as simple as inviting someone to have lunch and let's do a little shopping, and then you get to bless somebody and be, you can share how to do something without coming right out and saying it, but being an example yourself, and also making it a possibility if they have a struggle with their finances, maybe that's just how they, we take on what we grew up in a lot of times. So modeling is a very important thing. And sometimes we don't come from that directly.
You reminded me, I have a fork in the road. I'm like, there's two different things I want to talk about, but I got to pick one right now. When I took the mission trip to the Dominican Republic, our radio station does a lot of work in the DR. Something that kind of blew my mind. One, it's hot down there.
Yes.
It's hot down there.
Yep.
And modesty means something completely different down there.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking how I'm wording this. There was a lot of exposed skin in the DR.
Yes.
And it was like, whoa, this place is different. By the end of the week, I didn't notice it anymore.
Culture is so completely different.
So then I guess my next question would be, ladies, Mark, if we're talking, like we talked about this idea of dressing in a way to draw attention to yourself. What would you say to that person who maybe they go, all right, listen, you know what? I wear form fitting, I wear this, wear that. Cause listen, I work out, I work hard to get my body in a place that I'm proud of. And so, like I like to dress in a way that causes me to look really, really good. What's the harm in that? And if anybody is drawn to me, that's really their problem, not mine. Like, what would you say to that kind of mentality?
So good for you. First of all, I'm not going to steal that from you. You've earned it. I think that how we dress is only part of it. Kim mentioned this earlier. It has to do with what's inside of you. And a person who dresses very appropriately can be immodest. So
yes,
I
true.
think
That's good.
it really, it's a two-part because you can wear a tank top and a pair of, jogging pants that are, fairly tight and not be immodest because inside it's just a mentality too, what's in your heart. I think that I don't know if that's making sense or not.
It's how you carry yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I don't want this to sound judgmental, but what you just said as far as the person was like, I've done this and I've done that. Yes, good for you. But do you want to be arrogant about it? Like you can look good, and you can look good in lots of different styles of clothing. They don't have to be stuck to your skin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can still tell when someone is in shape.
Right.
There's a difference between saying, I feel good about myself.
Yes.
I'm in a healthy place. I feel good about myself. And hello, look at me.
Yes.
Look what I've done.
Because that's not
Look who I
modest
am.
internally either. The way they're thinking, that's not modest. So I love that you said that. It covers both. And you can tell by the way someone carries themselves. Like you said, if they were wearing the tank top and the sweatpants, they might still carry themselves so modestly that you're not as distracted by that.
I want to just not miss that because Denise, I love how you just shine a light on that. Okay, like what's the heart in that? And I think that through a little bit. So for the person, listen, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You just kind of reminded me. Well, hold on. Again, what's your goal in it? Like with the passages of the First Peter and the Paul, the idea is that your glory is not your body, right? So my question would be, why is it you need that? Why is it that you need, like, what longing is in you that I have to have the attention on me? Like, and I would say that's a highlighted, maybe an issue of the Holy Spirit bringing up, hey, like, where in your heart is an area where maybe Jesus needs to heal or bring security and change? Because, the other part would be this. I say this as a married guy. We're coming up on my wife and I being married for 20 years. if I were to, or Katie was to dress in a way so as to draw the attention, like intentionally to draw the attention of someone of the opposite gender, if I did that, I would hope she would have a problem with it. Mm-hmm. And if she did that, I would have a problem with it, right? Because okay, listen, like if we're believing the Bible and my body belongs to my spouse, why is it that I need attention on it from someone who isn't them? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I am very intentional whenever I put something on to go somewhere, that I make sure I'm like, is this okay? I tell my husband, is this okay? Would you? Most of the time he's like, you're being overly worried about it. You're fine, you know? But I mean, there's some things I might wear on a date night that I might not wear at church. You know what I'm saying? Sure. I look at the situation differently, but I'm always very aware of my husband and his feelings about what I'm wearing, because we're in partnership. I want to make sure he's good with it.
Which also, speaking of you and church, you're on the worship team at church.
Yes.
And
yes.
I know you take what you wear on stage at church very seriously.
I do. I think when you're on the platform, obviously you're up higher at a different level and people are looking at you. They're looking at the screens beside you for the words. I don't want to be distracting. Mm-hmm. I want to just focus it on Jesus. So in the summertime, say I'm just attending church and I'm not leading worship, I might wear a shirt that's sleeveless where my arms are out. It's hot, whatever, but still completely, the rest of me is covered. But I personally, this is my own conviction, not on anybody else, I won't wear a sleeveless shirt on the platform because I don't want to be distracting and have people just see skin when they're looking at the stage. That's me. That's what I choose to do. And those Sundays, that's when I especially ask my husband, is this okay? I'm leading worship, And when I first started attending my church many moons ago, back in the day, women always wore dresses, I don't typically like to wear dresses on the platform because I don't want to show my legs. So sometimes I will if it's a longer dress, but that's my own personal thing. No one told me, hey, this is what you have to do when you lead worship. That's just my own conviction and what I follow. I feel like that's between me and God, and I feel comfortable based on what I feel like he's leading me to do.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like a very like sub point to that is anyone listening who might be wanting to join the worship team or do anything involved with your church. As soon as you step into some form of leadership, even if it's just handing out holding the door for somebody at the front door, you are now representing your church.
Yes.
And so your leadership might ask you to kind of go above and beyond what would be considered modest, just like you're saying, like, yeah, you can wear something without sleeves when you're just attending. But as soon as I step into that leadership role, where people are looking at me and even comparing me to, okay, is this how I'm supposed to live my life? If I'm a Christian, am I supposed to be like this?
I feel like there's a higher expectation when you're in leadership. You're held to a higher standard. Yeah. That might be what I just put on my own self, but that's personally what I feel. When you're in leadership, people are looking to you to lead. So be a good example. Mm-hmm.
I want to bring up two more verses that they go together before we wrap up. These are kind of we've mentioned them, we've alluded to them. But Romans 14, I have 13 through 23. I don't need to read all of it, but I had it there in case I felt led. Therefore, let us not pass judgment on one another any longer, but rather decide never to put a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of a brother. I know and am persuaded in the Lord Jesus that nothing is unclean in itself, but it is unclean for anyone who thinks it unclean. For if your brother is grieved by what you eat, you are no longer walking in love. And this, there's all kinds of things about food and how, if you used to be Jewish and now you can eat pork and your brother can't eat pork, but you're trying to be...
Or is convicted not to eat pork.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you don't eat pork in front of them.
Right. It would just be rude.
That would just be rude. And kind of the same thing with the modesty thing. Like, and so this verse in combination with Matthew 5:28 is where I think a lot of our modesty conversations come from in the church. And it says this. So you think about that. Don't do things in front of people that will cause them to stumble. Matthew 5:28. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. And so when you put these two things together, you become a stumbling block if you are dressing so that someone else would commit adultery in their heart.
Yeah, I think, but those two passages, they can be a balance, right? So notice in Matthew 28 when Jesus, or not Matthew 20, Matthew 5:28, like when he says like the lusting in the eye thing, he doesn't place the blame on the person you're lusting after.
Right.
So at the end of the day, a person's choice to, because that verse is not about attraction. It's not about, hey, I see somebody, oh, they're attractive. It's about the looking back, the lingering, the consuming with the eyes. All right. That is a person's choice. Now, at the same time, bringing it back to the Romans passage, the other end, like the other balance part is, hey, in consideration of someone else, in being like, we'll just use the word kindness.
Yeah.
In kindness, I don't want to put before you something that could trip you up. Is it an issue where God is angry at me if I accidentally do? No. That brings it back to what we've been talking about, the idea of like heart issues behind why you do what you do. But let's just be really, really careful, because I want to make sure that we don't communicate, again, this idea that, someone should feel guilty for being attractive, or someone looked at them and oh my goodness, it was my fault. No. Like the thing in Matthew 5 is, it's on the person who commits the sin. It's
Yep.
I think that's a really good point, Burt, just because I want to say the default is, oh, that person, they show up dressed like that, they're the worst, they're terrible,
Right.
we need to get them out of here. But it's just neat that Jesus specifically says, like, no, yes, it's typically the way women dress and the way men perceive them, but Jesus is like, guys,
It's on you.
it's on you.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's just make sure that point is absolutely clear and said, because how many times have we heard horror stories, or maybe even unfortunately seen church environments or Christian environments where it's almost as though women are a potential threat at any moment to the men of the church if the woman looks a certain way, and so everybody's kind of on their guard, like, oh my goodness, she could, and I think that absolves, or it removes responsibility from men and unbalances the uniqueness that God has created in both male and female. We both have been made in the image of God, and we both have unique challenges and unique difficulties, issues of heart, things that the Lord will refine in each of us. And it's not that one is superior to the other, or that one is somehow, maybe the word is villainous, not with demonizing, but like someone is inherently villainous. And that's just not the case. It's a heart issue.
I feel like that ties a nice bow on the topic. Is there anything else that has popped into your guys' minds that we should just bring up before we close the episode?
I don't know if this needs to be said, but just to make it clear, regardless of how someone is dressed, they never deserve to be harmed or assaulted in any way. Just to make that clear.
Ooh.
Yes.
I feel like that needs to be said, because I don't want anybody to think, oh, because this person dressed that way, that's what happened to them. No. The other person has, it's a heart issue. They have responsibilities for themselves. So let's make that clear and not make anybody feel bad for anything. You know, I just feel like that's been said a lot over the years, and it's not true. I mean, the other person has responsibility as well, but if you know better, do better. If you feel like the Lord's convicting you of something, then do that. I like to think of it as, our bodies are a temple of the Lord. Are we taking care of it? How are we dressing it? What are we doing? What are we doing to honor God? Like Denise says, I want to draw attention to Jesus and not me. So let's remember that as well.
Yeah. Yep. I think honoring God is really, I feel like that has been in this conversation entirely, that it is about honoring him and encouraging others to draw closer to him. So how do we best do that? And if how we choose to dress hinders that, then that's time for prayer. Let's have a conversation with God. And how do you want me to dress, God? How do you want me to behave? Because again, it's not always all about the dress. It's about our behavior and the intent of our heart. So help me to do all that you've asked me to do, all that you've called me to do and made me to do for you, that it brings you honor and glory.
Yep. Amen.
That's really good.
Well, if you have any questions about this topic in particular, you can email them to podcast@wearethebridge.org. We also love getting your suggestions for future episodes. Those you can just put podcast@wearethebridge.org, and in the subject put Why Do Christians, so that it gets to us, because there's a lot of podcasts on the network. We appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for listening.